Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to be dehydrating eggs. I'm Rebecca from StockingMyPantry.com. Now, before I get into this, I just want to give credit where credit is due. I watched a video a few days ago by Pam of Rose Red Homestead, and in her video, she dehydrated eggs. And so much of what I am sharing with you, I learned from her. So she has a great channel. She's especially great when it comes to explaining safety in food preservation, and so I'll leave a link to her channel in the description and be sure to check it out. So I'm going to start off with, I have 6 eggs in my blender. I bought a package of 18 eggs. I have 3 trays, and so I'm putting 6 eggs on each tray. I've already beat up 12 of the eggs and put them on the trays. I just figured you didn't need to watch the whole thing. So that's why if you see the blender container has some kind of residue on it, it's because I've already beat up some eggs. So I'm just going to hit pulse a few times to beat up the eggs. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to pour them onto the tray. You can see that I have eggs, well, maybe you can't see, but anyway, I already have eggs on this tray and this one. I'm going to pull out this one part of the way, pull out the plastic tray part that I'm going to pour the eggs onto. And actually, before I do that, I want to pour these into a measuring cup. I want to just get an idea of how much I'm starting with, and then that'll give me an idea of, I'm hoping anyway, that'll help me know how much water to add. So you can see I have a measuring cup here, and it's at about 1, actually let me set it down on the table so it'll be level. It's about 1 1/4 cups. You can see it kind of looks like 1 1/3, but it's like the little foam from beating it up. So I'm going to say 1 1/4 cups. 6 eggs equals 1 1/4 cups. Okay, now let's go ahead and go back to the tray here. And I'm just going to pour that on. Oh, almost spilled it. Okay, and I'm just tilting it a little bit so that it goes all the way to the back, and then kind of getting it back up here to the front as evenly as possible. Okay, and Pam, in her video, she put 8 eggs on the tray. I don't know if she had bigger trays or what, but I'm kind of glad that I decided just to go with 6 because they're pretty full. Maybe I could have put another egg or 2 on the tray, but 6 seems to be good for my particular dehydrator. So one thing that Pam mentioned that was very helpful is that egg whites cook at 140 degrees Fahrenheit, and we want these eggs to be raw. Basically, we're not trying to cook them, we just want to dehydrate them. So she recommended dehydrating at 138 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to set the temperature for 138 degrees. And then the time I'm going to put for 12 hours. And then I'm just pressing start. All right, and it is evening, so I am going to be heading to bed soon, and tomorrow morning when I get up, I will check on these and give you guys an update. I'll see you then. Hello everyone, as you can see I've got 2 minutes left on the dehydrator. So the eggs have been going in the dehydrator for, you may as well say, 12 hours. So let's open them up and see how they look. I think this tray will be the easiest to see. You can see for the most part it's good and dry. I'm probably going to let it go just a little bit longer. I did check earlier, and you can see this one, it's a little bit gooey in the middle still, so that's not quite ready. What I think I'll probably do is when the dehydrator stops, I'm going to pull off this that's already real flaky and just set it aside. And then when the rest of it has completed drying, all of it has completed drying, I will powder it and then reconstitute it so you guys can see it. And I'll also kind of figure out how much equals an egg and how much egg powder to water that I need to use it in scrambled eggs or baking or that type of thing. So I'll bring you back later on tonight. Okay, now it's later in the evening. I haven't had the dehydrator running all this time. I just haven't had time to come back and finish everything up. So I stopped the dehydrator. It ran about 3 additional hours after the first 12 hours. And then I put all of it into a jar, and now I'm working on powdering it. I've already done a good amount of it. You can see I have this and a little bit more to go. So I figured I would just show you how I do the powdering process. And one thing I wanted to mention is some is still, even after I run it through the coffee grinder, it's still kind of big. What I suspect is that there's some moisture in there, still a little bit of moisture. And anyway, as a precaution, after I powder everything, I go ahead and put the powder back into the dehydrator and let it run for another hour. So what I'm going to do is any bits that don't grind up real well, I will put on a separate tray in the dehydrator and let them run a while and then powder them again, you know, run them through the grinder again. So anyway, let me go ahead and just grind up what is left. Okay, so I'm just going to dump some in my coffee grinder. You can use a coffee grinder or a blender. It seems like a coffee grinder works a little bit better, and I use this particular grinder for pretty much everything but coffee. Never use it for coffee, but okay, and it still looks fairly chunky in there, so I'm going to pulse it again. Okay. And so what I do is I just put the canning funnel over the jar, and I put this in. And if you've seen me do powders before, you know I have a video on kale powder. And I just shake it in and stir it through. And you'll notice some of those are probably just need to be ground up a little more, but I'm just going to put them in the dish of things that are not ground up. Another thing that happens is because of the heat, I don't think you'll be able to see too well because I'm blocking the light, but powder kind of sticks down at the bottom, and so you just, actually let me put this back on here just in case there's any larger chunks. Usually the stuff at the bottom is pretty flaky, pretty powdery, but it also gets kind of caked up a little bit. And what happens is when you're running something like a coffee grinder or blender, it gets hot, and then there's the moisture, and then that kind of makes it clump up a little bit. And so running it through the dehydrator again is what's going to take care of any moisture that occurred while I was running it in the coffee grinder, as well as just any moisture that still was in there. Okay, and I'm pretty sure, yeah, that there's just some bits of moisture in there. Okay, so I'm going to just finish up the rest of it, put it on the trays, and run it in the dehydrator. Okay, so here's the tray with kind of the bits that did not grind up very well. And I'm going to stick that in. And just going to use one tray for all of the powder and just spread it out. I just happened to think, so when I've done this before with powders, I've used my Nesco, which has the fan on the top. So I'm hoping that this doesn't blow all over the place with the fan on the back. What I actually think I'm going to do is I'm going to divide this into 2 trays just so that it sets down into the tray a little bit better, but I won't make you watch that part. And I'm going to dry it, and then later I will talk to you about how to rehydrate and the proper proportion of egg powder to water. Okay, so I just wanted to give my final update on this. I did end up drying the powder more, and the parts that did not powder up nicely did after I dried them for another couple hours. I was able to grind them up fine. I also wanted to let you know that what I ended up doing is I did about 1.5 tablespoons to about 2.5 tablespoons of water, and that seemed to work out well for 1 egg. I then scrambled them up and gave some to myself. I ate a little bit. I gave a bite to my mom and to my husband as well. Everyone felt that they tasted good. I didn't notice any weird texture or anything. My husband did mention that he thought that there was a slight aftertaste with these, but we both kind of agreed that it might just be because he knew that they're powdered eggs, and so that might have been a psychological thing because my mom and I, neither one noticed that. So anyway, I definitely consider this a success. I hope that you guys will give it a try. I definitely recommend it. It does save quite a bit of money compared to if you buy commercial powdered eggs. I'll put up on the video what a typical per egg cost if you buy powdered eggs from companies such as Thrive Life or Augustin Farms or that type of thing, compared to what a per egg cost is at my local grocery store. And of course, your prices may vary a little bit. I also just want to talk a little bit about storing these. You can see that right now I have just a plastic lid on. I do plan to end up using a food saver on this with a metal lid, and so vacuum sealing it. And if you don't have a food saver, you can just put in an oxygen absorber. If you do have a food saver, I recommend, since this is a powder and I do this for all powders, is at the top of the jar I put in like a coffee filter or something like that to be a barrier between the powder and the vacuum sealer, because you can end up sucking up the powder into your vacuum sealer and ruin it. So you don't want to do that. Now, if by chance you don't have either oxygen absorbers or a food saver, then you might want to store this in your freezer instead of on the shelf. But I plan to store mine on the shelf. I suspect it'll last a good year or two pretty easily, although I would plan to eat them within a year. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you would like the video. And if you haven't already done so, if you would subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.